Fall of Voluun
Castaways
by Jason Halstead. Like and subscribe so you know when the next part of the series is released. Chapter 1.
I can't just sit still.
4 heads lifted to watch Theo push himself to the edge of the crates. He hopped off and splashed down.
You're on a boat. You won't be going far.
Theo turned to look back at the dwarf.
I don't need to go far, just far enough to find people I can help. After turning my back on so many.
Ganner cut him off.
You didn't turn your back on anyone. There was no way to save them. Had you stayed, you'd have died with them. Then who could you help?
Perhaps, but either way, if I can be of help now, then that's what I should be doing.
Not sitting in the dark,
It is a bit close down here.
Delani said while the priest splashed away.
I wouldn't mind stretching my legs a bit too.
Raisin hopped up.
I'll go. Might be some aid stations set up or I can find out what's going on.
Good luck with that. Way my luck's been, I'm going to spend some time getting my spells back.
Getting them back? Where'd they go?
He means he's going to rest and study his spell book.
Oh, good luck with that then.
Arika splashed down in the water and paused long enough to look down at herself. She made some adjustments to her dress and then gave up. The right shoulder strap was torn, leaving her right breast bared to the world and turning the dress into a one-shouldered garment that sagged in the middle. The skirt covered her in the front, but in the back it was torn to tatters that exposed more of her bottom than it covered.
Why is it your dress is ruined, but our clothes are fine? Seems suspect, don't you think? I mean, why only you?
Check your pants.
Delani looked down and saw the tears at his hips where the demon wolf that landed on him sank its claws into him. His eyes widened and he looked up.
Oh my.
The rest of us be smart enough to not let them in close, Slab said. He tipped his hat to Arika and added, begging your pardon, my lady, given that's how you defend yourself. Arika smirked and nodded to the dwarf.
I could, see about finding a cloak or robe or shirt or something.
There's no need.
You're kind of,
Ganner shrugged when Delani looked his way for support.
I'll be fine.
jumping in those boots too. My lady, you are most impressive in so many ways.
Just ask her if you can try the damn things on.
What? No, I'm just impressed, that's all. They're like riding boots, but the heel is raised the width of my hand. Arika smiled at the elf.
Makes me taller and improves my figure. I use every advantage at my disposal.
Slab snorted but kept his focus on his tome of magic. Arika made her way to the ladder and began climbing it without further delay. Delani hesitated and then hurried to follow her. He looked up, watching her until he could get on the ladder. Near the top, she leaned to the side, enough to look down before she lifted her leg to the decking of the next floor and climbed off the ladder and stood up. Delani froze for a moment, his gaze trapped by hers. His cheeks flushed with heat, but he knew he couldn't go back down or pretend he hadn't seen what he'd just seen. Not after she'd caught him staring up her skirts like that. The last 5 rungs of the ladder made him thirstier than he'd ever been in his life. Arika tilted her head and raised one perfectly sculpted blonde eyebrow when he turned to face her.
I didn't mean to. I mean, I was just...
Her smile grew as he searched for words.
I didn't know you had no small clothes on. People wear layers, you know. Especially beautiful and important people such as you.
If I change forms, my clothes are destroyed. Easier to be able to get out of them quickly.
Delani's mouth dropped.
Hey, what's going on?
Raisin asked as he climbed up and out of the hold.
You okay, Delani? You look sick or something?
Delani coughed and shook his head.
No, I just need a drink.
Let's see if we can find you that drink then.
Good hunting.
You're not coming with us?
Our ways part here. I must commune with my master.
Delani hesitated, opened his mouth, paused again, and then closed it and offered a simple wave.
You're cute, I think you'd make for a tasty snack.
Delawny's eyes widened.
A snack?
She licked her lips with a tongue that was long, slender, and entirely too flexible. She sucked it back into her mouth and turned to walk away toward the stairs up.
Oh, my sweet saints.
Raisin chuckled and asked,
About that drink?
I'm going to need a double.
Chapter 2.
Arika did her best to hide her smile as she left the overstimulated elf behind. The people crowding the passages and rooms were in mourning. A beautiful woman with a grin on her face would seem more than a little out of place. She'd claimed to need to commune with her master, but that wasn't entirely true. She could reach out to him at any time, though it would leave her unaware of her surroundings and vulnerable. No, what she needed to do was to learn more about what had happened to Voluun. Was the knowledge and art that Master desired to share truly lost, or would they seek to reclaim it? Or perhaps there was another option. How pleased would her master be if she could give him Voluun to rule rather than to share with others? What if he didn't need to negotiate, find a compromise, and make a deal? What if it was his for the taking? How pleased would he be if she could give him that? How might he reward her? She didn't crave power or fame. Well, not as much as others of her kind did. Arika craved attention, her master's attention, his touch and his desire. She served him and desired to give him what no one else could. Already he had in her a woman that he could use to tame his darkest urges, to keep his infernal side at bay. She craved his heavy hand, urged him even to do his worst to her. It touched her and thrilled her in ways nothing else could. But to give him the knowledge of Voluun, that would be something undreamt of. Yes, that was what must happen. She had to use this turn of events to her advantage. Chaos Master had taught her was filled with opportunity. Arika picked up her pace as much as the crowded ship would allow. Many of them looked at her as she moved among them, but not as many as she was accustomed to. Far fewer took notice of her state of undress, which surprised her. A few people tried to get her attention, women mostly, and one even openly offered her a shawl. Arika hurried past them, pretending she hadn't noticed or heard them. It was believable, given the state of the ship and the people. Back on the deck, she looked and milled about, searching for someone in charge. She spotted the priest amidst an area set up to triage the wounded. A few of them had been covered with blankets or pieces of clothing, but only a few. She also saw Theo, the priest of Ayala. Of course he was there, tending to the injured just as Sadie would have done. Arika made her way to him and let her shadow fall on him while he tied a bandage around a long scrape on a young woman's leg. He smiled at her and offered her some words of encouragement before noting the girl was staring up above him instead of at him. Theo turned and looked up at Arika, squinting to make out her features with the sun giving her a halo effect. She looked saintly, her blonde hair on fire with the sun's kiss. He knew better.
My lady, we meet again.
He glanced around and added,
I'm sure I can find a robe or something you can cover yourself with.
She ignored his offer.
That guard, Trogar. Have you seen him?
Theo turned back to her.
The sergeant? Not in a while. He helped arrange things on deck, and then I got too busy to notice him.
Arika glanced around the deck and then looked back down. The girl was still staring. The young woman's eyes darted from her half-naked chest to her face and to the partially healed cuts on Arika's skin.
Most of the injured are fairly well off. Scratches and sprains, no doubt from rushing to escape. I expected much worse.
Demons will toy with their prey, but they seldom let them escape.
Theo frowned and glanced at his patient.
You're safe now, child. Nothing will hurt you here.
Her lip quivered and her eyes watered. She met Arika's gaze and asked,
You're hurt! Did they play with you?
Arika smiled.
I played with them.
The girl's eyes widened. Arika looked her up and down. She was a human girl on the cusp of ripening, cute under the dirt and fear, but not beautiful. Still, she could make something of herself if she tried.
Learn from this. Be the cat, not the mouse.
Lady Arika, I think she's learned enough from this awful day.
The girl lifted her hand and pointed toward the bow of the ship.
I think they went in there. Guards were talking.
Arika tilted her head and smiled at the girl.
Thank you.
Sailors and refugees alike watched her move with a purpose. The guards caught sight of her and grew silent. They drew themselves up and stood as close to at attention as they could, without feeling like they being obvious about it. Arika slowed to a stop and stared at them.
Is Sergeant von Highwall in there?
He is. Who's asking?
She managed to see both guardsmen wince as they realized they'd nearly spoken over each other.
I need to speak with who's in charge. My name is Lady Arika of Griffinmond.
Lady Arika, is it? Do all the ladies have their tits out in Griffinmond?
The other guard sucked in a sharp breath and then let it out with a grin that showed his teeth. Arika stared at the guard that had asked his question.
Some do, if it suits them.
She turned her attention to the grinning guard.
You're smiling. Are you threatening me?
Threat? What? No, milady, I...
All beasts in nature know that bared teeth is a threat, a promise of violence. Only so-called civilized people try to prove they are better than the beasts around them. They will tame.
Their primal nature and prove it by declaring the gesture a smile. If you're not threatening me, then are you happy to see me?
He's happy to see your tit.
You're not smiling? Does that mean you don't like seeing my tit?
What?
You've had enough of my attention. Step out of my way, so I may speak with Sergeant von Highwall. I've had enough of killing this day, with the demons I slew with my hands.
Their eyes went to her hands as she curled and flexed her fingers at her side. Her nails looked long and dangerous, even without turning them fully into claws.
Oi, Voluun's lost enough today.
The guard on the right stepped back and knocked on the door. He opened it after a few seconds and called in.
Sergeant, I've got a Lady Arika here that says she needs to speak.
Arika strained and heard the sergeant sigh from inside the room. A full second passed before he called for her to be sent in. Arika gave the rude guard a close-lipped smile. The other one she stepped up close to and kissed on the cheek before she passed into the forecastle on the ship and shut the door behind her.
Oi, she's got hot lips.
The guard reached up to brush his cheek. The other guard laughed.
She left a mark. Her lips were painted. Wait till Sylvia sees. Oh, shit. Sorry. I seen her. She made it on one of the other ships. We'll be together again once they figure out where we're going.
Chapter 3.
Please fetch the lady a shirt.
Sergeant von Highwall ordered when Arika strode into the room. The only two people in the room weren't people at all, but oval-shaped mirrors held upright in polished bronze stands on a square table. One bore the head of a woman with green-tinged skin, elongated ears with multiple golden hoops in them, and dark hair pulled back into braids. Her canine teeth pushed against her upper lips, causing them to bulge out. The other mirror held the head of a blonde-haired man with a close-shaved beard and no mustache. His eyes were gray and sharp. Between the two mirrors and the sergeant was an open map on the table.
Damn.
Trogar turned and rifled through a dresser.
I keep forgetting I'm short on guardsmen and there aren't any pages.
Arika accepted the off-white shirt and held it up. Without a word, she pulled it over her head and tugged it down over her ruined dress. The laces in the front strained to contain her breasts and left her almost more exposed than she had been. He considered the state of her skirt and added,
Some pants, too, perhaps.
No pants. I don't wear pants.
You'd rather let everyone see your business if the wind blows that rag of a skirt?
Yes.
Trogar grunted and glanced back at the table and the mirrors.
My apologies. Lady Arika, this is Galfina. She ran the library of Voluun and consulted with many lords on research projects in matters of magic. This mirror holds Master Oliver. He was assistant to Lord Peter before today.
Arika looked at Galfina.
What manner of creature are you?
I am not from this world. Where I come from, my people are known as ogres. And I am, or was, a magi among them.
Quite different from the ogres here. You are beautiful, not brutish and slow.
Thank you. You are beautiful as well, my lady.
Arika gave a brief nod of acknowledgement and turned to Master Oliver. Sergeant Trogar spoke before Arika had a chance to.
My lady, I don't mean to be curt, but the three of us are the highest ranking we can find amongst the survivors. We're trying to make plans for what comes next. What can I do for you so that we can get back to ensuring our survival?
Arika looked at the map. She noted small islands on it and 3 coins near another island. She pointed at the coins. This is us?
Yes.
I would like to help.
Are you a wizard?
I am not.
Griffinmont, an island nation to the west.
Oliver informed them.
Known for their fine silks.
This is correct. It does us no good here.
Indeed, even the fastest ships would take weeks to travel then, and longer to come back.
We don't have weeks, we have days. 3 before the food is gone, 2 for water.
We're surrounded by water.
Have you never sailed the ocean before? Or been to a beach?
The water is death to drink, a slow and painful death from the salt in it.
Arika shook her head.
My master taught me a trick. The air is warm, and the skies are often clear. Fill buckets with ocean water and line wooden planks over them. The water will heat and rise into the air. Then collect on the wood and run down to another bucket or bowl. That water in the second bowl is safe to drink.
That's nonsense! A wizard could do it, certainly, but...
That's brilliant. I never thought of such a simple solution. It's elegant in its simplicity.
Arika gave the woman another nod of appreciation. Master Oliver wasn't having it.
You can't possibly believe that water would just rise up. Even if it did, the salt water is not like normal water. It is as different as blood is to wine.
It is as she says. Test it. I will sketch a design and share it. It won't be quick, but it will prolong our stores of water.
Master Oliver huffed.
Even then, what's another day or 2? Our food will end. We can fish, but to catch enough to feed all these people? Impossible! We don't have the nets, bait, or people that know how to do it.
That is true. The water gives us a greater range to consider, though. I propose we head to Scarletta. It is a wild and untamed island, save for a couple of small settlements. Sparketh is their capital, and one they do have is abundant food and water.
Trogar held his hands up.
Yes, a good idea, but we can discuss that soon enough. Lady Arika, we
appreciate your help, but we have much to discuss. Arika searched the map for the island named Scarletta. It wasn't the closest, but it was the largest within a handspan of the coins. The symbols on the map showed a mix of trees, mountains, and rivers. There was a large lake in the middle of it, too. She presumed a freshwater lake. Where the river that drained from that lake met the sea was Sparketh. Arika looked at Trogar.
You have a handful of guardsmen.
He nodded. She turned to the table and looked at Galfina first.
Is the same true for you, Magi Galfina?
Galfina's head lifted and a smile eased the tension on her face.
Less than a handful.
Trogar frowned.
What are you getting at, my lady?
You're going to Sparketh for supplies, or to settle your people. Would they be willing to take on so many?
We don't know yet. We're still discussing that.
We hate to abandon Voluun.
We must reclaim Voluun. It cannot be left in the hands of infernals.
There is knowledge and items of power that must not fall into the wrong hands. Trogar sighed.
Sergeant, Lords of Voluun, allow me to help.
We're not,
I'm only...
Arika held up her hands, stopping their protests. Master Oliver took the opportunity.
We are the Lords of Voluun now. Lord Peter fell against a demoness that was a mix of spider and snake. I heard Lord Baspar fought to the end to slow the infernal horde's advance. Lady Tarala, her sword shall be forever interred in the stones of Voluun as a testimony to her bravery.
Arika's eyes narrowed. Tarala's sword. She remembered seeing it when the spots faded from her eyes. It was still there where she and the demon had fought.
The rest of the 7 are gone, killed by demons where they fought or fled.
That makes us the ranking officials of Voluun. We are the Lords of Voluun.
Protem.
For now.
The 7 are wizards.
There was no rule insisting they be wizards. Galfina, is that not true?
You are correct.
Trogar sighed.
As I said, Lords of Voluun, let me help.
Acting Lord von Highwall lifted his eyes to her. Her shirt seemed tighter than it had before, at least across her chest.
Let me talk to the leaders of Sparketh. You need your guards to keep order here. My servants will protect me and provide me with what I need to negotiate on your behalf.
On our behalf, and tell me, Lady Arika, what do you desire in return for this?
Your survival is my survival. I am only protecting my own best interests. I know what I can do. I don't know what others are capable of. I don't intend to leave my survival to the unknown.
Yet you ask us to do the same with you?
Lady Arika has surrounded herself with a fitting troop. She has a priest with a caring and merciful soul, a grim warrior, an archer, and both an elven and a dwarven advisor. To get such a pair working together speaks highly of her.
What Lady Arika says is true regarding our manpower and resources. Already she has gifted us a few extra days. I vote we give her the chance to give us many more beyond that.
Trogar added his vote by saying,
2 for Lady Arika. What say you, Master Oliver?
Lord Oliver.
Oliver's chin lifted a fraction of an inch before he dropped it again in a decisive nod.
Very well. She is my vote as well.
Our first vote as the new Lords of Voluun. I will draft up scrolls of this and record it.
And I will rally my people and be sure to not let us down. I wonder, considering what we might face, can we be sure they are well nourished before we arrive?
Trogar nodded.
Yes, that's a good idea. Keep them at their best if they're going to represent and secure what we need.
Arika turned to leave and then stopped as an idea came to her.
Oh, if the leader of Sparketh wants to haggle with gold, what do we have to barter with?
Trogar snorted.
Precious little. Nobody thought to raid the banks or the Lord's coffers before they fled.
I see. Very well. Goodwill and services it is.
We've a couple days of sailing. We'll see what we can turn up should it come down to that.
Of course.
Trogar nodded to her and then jerked as he remembered something. He patted his pockets and pulled out a coin and held it out for her.
Take this.
Arika took it and inspected it. She knew even before she touched it, the coin was gold, but there was an impurity to it. The impurity made the metal red instead of yellow, a red circle. Embossed in the middle of it was a white sword.
This was Lady Redmoon's token.
Arika looked up at him.
She gave it to you at her final battle?
Yes, she gave it to me and bade me protect the people of Voluun. Each lord has had a token they could give out to a single person to let citizens of Voluun know they acted at the lord or lady's bequest. Since you are not well known and we have much to discuss here before we share what is happening with the people, this will tell the people on these ships to give you what you need.
A white blade on a red moon. I understand the token better now. Thank you, my lords and lady.
Thank you, Lady Arika.
Chapter 4.
Arika was happily on both knees before the fearsome visage of her master. The room was dark with a black stone floor and a throne forged from obsidian. Braziers cast baleful red light that made wicked shadows dance in the corners. She kept her eyes low out of respect and to hide the hope she feared might be on her face. Hope that he would reward her in this special extraplanar space where she could breathe in his presence.
Arika, even after all this time, you never failed to find ways to surprise me, John said after she'd finished recounting her tale of the fall of Voluun.
Thank you, Master,
Arika said and then caught her breath. Was surprising him a good thing? John chuckled. The sound was sinister to her ears. It made her belly twist and sent a thrilling tingle down her spine and straight to her sex. She fought the urge to squeeze her legs together.
Yes, I'm impressed. Saints below. I need to figure out how to alter this infernal place.
Master?
Rise. Arika, rise. This place, this room. You acting like a lamb led to be slaughtered. It thrills the darkness in me and gives it more power than it should have.
You are magnificent, Master.
Arika breathed as she finally looked fully upon him. John was in the prime of his life. For the second time now, and his body had been sculpted by a powerful succubus that reshaped him to be her champion. Now John was the master, and Beatrixa, the demon that tried to claim him, was lost to an eternity of punishment. In this place, though, John's infernal powers were at their peak. They manifested with dark leathery wings that he kept tucked tight against his back, curved horns that rose from his brow, and reddish-hued, glistening skin on his bare chest and arms. Even a glance was all it took to steal Arika's breath and make her offer herself to him for the taking.
Perhaps, but not in the way I want to be. Remember that, Arika. Serve me by helping me to never be like Beatrixa was, to never be wicked and merciless.
She bowed her head.
If that is your wish, Master, I will do so. Your urges, you can sate them on me, Master. I don't mind.
You don't mind?
Arika's breath caught in her throat. She dropped her gaze to his feet.
I like it, Master. I yearn for it.
Yes. Well, I remember when I had that damned sword with Kalinox in it.
Arika moaned without meaning to. She sucked in a breath and nodded.
I'm sorry, Master. Yes, that was wondrous.
I'll give you what you need, Arika. That is my vow to you. But I put to you the task of rising above what you were made to be. Become your own person. Be better. Be wondrous yourself.
Yes, Master. I will bring you honor and glory.
Improve yourself and you will do that. Remember, Arika, you may have the blood of a dragon in your veins, but you are more than that.
Arika felt the heat rush through her entire body at John's words and his praise.
Now, Voluun, it is terrible what happened. I'm disappointed, but that's a minor thing and wholly not your fault. What I'm happy about is the initiative you have taken. Help these people and do what you can to make things right again. Serve as my emissary to aid them, and they will reward you. I will reward you too.
Master.
John smiled. With his infernal trappings, a smile on his face looked truly terrifying. Arika's belly and thighs trembled with the thrill of a tiny orgasm.
I'll see if I can arrange another means of communing. I'd rather only come here as a last resort.
She bowed her head.
Yes, Master.
If you need me, though, you can use this to call on me. If there's nothing else to be done, I will endure this place to have the chance to make sure you're safe.
I will not fail you, Master.
I trust you won't.
He opened his mouth to say more and then shut. After a moment of thought, he tried again.
Arika, you are important to me. One of my chosen. You were, perhaps, the only one I was not sure about. Those concerns are behind us. You have earned your place.
Thank you, Master.
Arika struggled to say.
I will think on the rest you have told me, and share more when I can. Until then, help the people of Voluun and stay safe. Remember who you are, and also remember that I have said, I see there is more in you that you have not yet discovered.
Arika beamed in his praise and then watched, wide-eyed, as John rose from his dark throne and stepped to her. He reached out while she stood paralyzed and cupped her cheek in his warm hand. It was so warm, in fact, that she pulled in a breath sharply through her nose. Heat normally didn't bother her much, but this was power. John leaned forward more and pressed his lips to her forehead. Arika gasped from the surge of heat that rushed into her and made her world explode in fire.
Chapter 5.
Arika's head jerked forward, and she sucked in a gasp. She looked around, confused at the sudden change of scenery. She wasn't in Master John's dark sanctum anymore. She was back on the ship. There were people around her, but nobody within a few feet. When she'd first sat down and leaned against the wall of one of the many layers on the stern, she'd been all but shoulder to shoulder with refugees.
Are you well?
Arika snapped her head to the right and saw a young boy looking at her from his mother's lap.
Shh, leave her be,
the boy's mother said. Arika smiled at him as everything fit back into place. Her time with Master, his praise and his directions. She nodded.
I am well, thank you. Soon we will all be well.
The boy gasped and looked up at his mom.
You shouldn't give false hope.
Arika stood up and stepped away from the wall to let the sun warm her while the wind rustled her hair.
Lady Arika of Griffinmont, chosen of Lord John.
What?
That is my name. Remember it when people start to ask who brought food and water and saved you.
The boy's mouth fell open as he stared as Arika turned and walked away. Arika made her way across the deck in search of her servants. She found Theo tending to some people who were sick from infections, the motion of the ship, or some other ailment. Arika didn't care, only that Theo was there among them, and Torger had taken note that Theo was one of hers. The priest looked up at her and noted her new shirt.
An improvement among polite company.
Lord von Highwall insisted.
He handed a rag to the man he'd been tending and stood up. He winced at the soreness in his legs from squatting from too long.
Sergeant Torger's a lord now, is he?
The 7 are dead.
She glanced around to indicate the refugees and continued. These people need leadership. Lord von Highwall, Lady Galfina, and Lord Oliver.
One's as good as any, I suppose. Hopefully they know enough to prioritize keeping people safe and they steer clear of violence. Did you come by to tell me that?
I came by to ask if I could count on you to help the people of Voluun.
Of course. That's what I've been doing. After what happened, well, yes. I plan on helping every last one of them that needs it.
I mean, all of them. I want you to help me when we reach a port to acquire food, water, and whatever other supplies these people need.
Theo clamped his mouth shut and tilted his head as he considered what she said.
Well, yes, of course I'll help. So long as you don't mean to steal or kill people to get supplies. You don't mean that, do you?
No, I will talk to them and negotiate what is needed.
All right, good. Yes, I will definitely help you. I'm impressed. Thank you, Arika, Lady Arika, for thinking of me and for caring.
I came to you first, Theo. I told you, I know a priestess of Ayalea. She is a sister to me. I know of your values, and also your value.
Theo's tired back straightened a little at the praise. He smiled a little and touched a hand to his chest.
Just tell me when you need me.
We have a couple days still. The only thing I'll ask is that you try to get some rest before. That and make sure you eat and drink. Search me out. I'll make sure you get what you need when the time is right.
Theo frowned.
If you are too weak from hunger and thirst to help, then what good is saving them a few bites and sips of water?
Theo hesitated and then nodded.
Yes, you're right. I see it. It pains me, but I see it. I will find you when it is time.
And be rested.
I will be.
She held his gaze a moment before nodding and turning away to find another one of her servants. It didn't take long for her to hear raised voices coming through an open doorway near the stern. She moved closer and quickly made out the sounds to not be angry, or at least not combative. Some were cheers. Something was happening in one of the back rooms of the ship. She slipped through the door and edged through a crowd to find a group of people throwing dice. Raisin was one of the players, of course. Delaunay watched him from nearby and chatted with a few others in the crowd. Satisfied that she'd found them, she turned and slipped back out in search of the ship's quartermaster. A few questions of the sailors directed her to one of the aft decks that overlooked most of the ship to man that was busy with a stream of sailors and guardsmen. Arika moved up behind him just as a guard stepped in to talk to him. The guard saw her and froze.
Pardon my interruption.
The quartermaster turned to look at her and did a double-take. His eyes dropped and rose, taking in her once fine skirts and the very tight shirt. He grinned.
All right. If you're wearing the captain's finest shirt, I'm listening.
I need a flask or bottle of ale or wine, whatever you've got.
You and every second one of those landlubbers?
It's not for me.
His eyes twinkled.
It's for your husband? A friend? Maybe a brother?
Arika's smile began to fade. She felt her insides crawl with desire. Not the sort that her master inspired either, but the sort of desire that ended in blood.
I'm trying to help these people.
Arika reminded herself. She plucked the token from a pocket on her shirt and held it up for him to see.
I have this.
He reached for it and said,
"Oh, I'll take that in trade."
Arika caught his wrist in her other hand and squeezed it hard enough to make him gasp.
It's not a coin. It's a token from Lady Redmoon that means I am acting with her full authority.
I don't give a good fuck if it says you're the Scene of the Seas. Take your hands off me now, or... She's right,
the guard said.
She's an agent of one of the seven. Treat her as such.
A few other guardsmen took note and mumbled and nodded. More than one checked to make sure their weapons were at the ready. Arika's chest swelled. She smiled and let the sailor's wrist go.
What have you got for me?
He rubbed his wrist and looked at her hand and arm before returning his gaze to glare at her. Arika tempered the urge to crush the little man and said, "A, I'm sorry for hurting your arm. I was afraid you were going to take the token and it made me overreact."
I could have asked instead of grabbing.
He offered and turned away to head for a door behind him. Inside the door, he unlocked a chest and pulled out flask. He shook it and then nodded and returned to hand it to her.
Rum, the good stuff the captain likes.
Thank you. I'll remember this when we've set things right.
The quartermaster grunted again, paused to let his eyes linger on her curves, and then turned back to the others. Arika endured his attempt at misogyny with ease. She didn't care if he ogled her, so long as she got what she needed. Even if she hadn't, she'd invited his behavior with the way she dressed and acted. It was all part of a dance of power. Her power. She returned to the lower deck and made her way back through the crowd. She slipped between bystanders with dexterous ease and moved behind Delaunay.
I have something for you,
she said in his ear. Delaunay jumped a little and turned to see her standing there. He grinned and then noticed her shirt.
My lady, you found something to wear.
Bring Raisin. Back to the hold I would speak with all of you.
You have something for all of us, too?
Arika reached beneath her shirt and pulled the flask out from where she tucked it into her dress. She let just enough of it show beneath her shirt to be sure he recognized it before slipping it back away.
If you want to share.
Delaunay licked his lips.
Oh, right. Yes, I'll bring him. We'll be there soon. I promise.
Arika smiled and made her way through the crowd and back out the door. She returned to the ship's hold and found Ganner sharpening his sword while his feet hung over the edge of the crate. Slab was still on top of it and working in the near dark with his book and a quill.
You're back. I thought our ways had parted.
I am back, and I need your help.
The stone in Ganner's hand stopped. He looked at her and tucked it into his pocket.
With what?
Survival.
You don't strike me as particularly frail.
Not me, all of us. All the refugees.
Ganner frowned.
What's this?
Slab put his book down and slid forward to peer over the crate at her.
You found a shirt that almost fits.
Yes, sadly. It's itchy.
Ganner smirked.
I want to know if I can count on you to help me. All of you. Delaunay, Raisin, Theo, and you two. You can fight or tend the wounded, at least in Theo's case. Slab, you're a wizard.
Raisin's got skills for when Ganner can't cut something apart. Delaunay, well, he's not afraid of a fight either. Slab snorted.
Why?
Ganner asked, and then held up a hand. His gauntlets were off, and Arika could see well enough to note the blue coloration of his veins.
I mean, what do you intend to do to help the people of Voluun?
Arika opened her mouth and then stopped. She tilted her head before turning and staring at the ladder. In a matter of seconds, the rest of them heard boots striking wood, and then Delaunay dropped into the water with a splash and walked over toward them. Or more specifically, he walked to Arika.
We're here?
Delaunay glanced at her belly where he'd last seen the flask.
So you are.
Arika waited for Raisin to walk over and climb up on the crate.
Delaunay said, "You needed our help?"
He's right. I spoke with the new lords and lady of Voluun, and they have asked us to help them keep their people alive.
They look to be living all right.
It's only day one. Today they share their misery and are kindred spirits. Tomorrow they start to realize what they lost and look to see who has more than they do. In another couple of days, when the food and water become scarce, then things start to get ugly.
That's grim.
What's grim is that with the number of guards they've got, half the people on this ship will be killing each other before they can do anything about it. And then when they try, they'll be killed too.
I hope you're wrong.
I'm not.
I didn't say you were. Just that I hope you are.
In 2 or 3 days, we make it to Scarletta. That's an island with a port and fresh supplies. As you said, the guards will have their hands full. It's my job, our job, if you'll come with me, to find food, water, and whatever else we need.
Find them how?
Trade, purchase, or work for them. Theo's agreed to come with us too.
Oh, well, that's something. He can preach them to sleep so we can negotiate better terms.
Arika smirked.
Come with me, and we're to have first chance at staying fit and hearty. Then after, well, we'll have proven ourselves, won't we? They'll be indebted to us.
You mean like payment for a job well done? About that.
Yes, exactly that.
She slipped her hand beneath her shirt and pulled forth the flask. She studied it a moment and then tossed it to the elf. Delaunay caught it and twisted the top off savagely. He lifted it to his lips and threw back a quick brace of it before pulling it away, closing his eyes and letting out a lusty moan.
What's this?
Rum.
Raisin's nose wrinkled.
Oh, no thanks.
Delaunay smiled and took another drink from it.
2 or 3 days, if Raisin's right. Things will be tense about then, Slab said while eyeing the flask in the elf's hands.
So we make it our job to keep them relaxed. Can I count on you?
Can you get more of this?
Delaunay held up the flask.
I can get you things you haven't even imagined.
Delaunay grinned.
I'm yours.
Aye, I'll help too. There's things on that island I'd like to have a look at.
Arika looked up at him.
You know of Scarletta?
A little.
She waited for more, but he didn't share. She turned to Ganner.
You?
I've lost the trail of who I hunt. Might as well help you out for now.
Thank you.
Arika said before turning to Raisin.
Sure, I'm happy to try out a new port. I expect I'll be bored after a couple more days of this place.
It is decided then. Rest and make ready. If you need something, let me know. I will procure what I can.
How?
Arika held up the token.
This is the token of Lady Redmoon. It's been given to me to hold to ensure we get what we need.
Ooh, that could come in handy.
I'll see.
And that is why it stays with me. It can only be given, not taken, else it curses the owner. Arika lied.
No complaints here.
Arika looked to the others and received nods or proof they'd already moved on and were content with how things stood. She waited a moment longer to be certain her lie was safe and then nodded. They would do as she asked for now. Hopefully, she bought their loyalty so they'd continue to do that too. Time would tell, but she sensed no guile among them. Her eyes lingered on Raisin a moment while his gaze mapped out the people and crates in the hold. Perhaps at least one of thee was planning something, but it wasn't directed against her.
Chapter 6.
The wave chaser bobbed gently in the waves of the natural bay 2 days later. The ship had broken ahead of the other 2 ships in their race to the west. It took 3 exhausted wizards, each with a smattering of weather magic, to pull ahead and reduce the trip to Scarletta by a full day. While the wizards suffered and the crew endured long shifts and reduced rations, the refugees pulled together with hope that their ordeal might take a turn for better. The affairs of the other ships that hadn't arrived yet remained to be known.
They'll be sick, hungry, thirsty, and probably burned from the sun when they get here tomorrow.
Theo said to others in the longboat that was ferrying them to the dock.
Let's hurry so we can be sure to be back to help them.
We are hurrying. Unless you think you could row faster.
I know, I'm sorry. I just hate to think of the suffering, and worse, the desperation and frustration that might drive them to do regretful things.
You can take over for me if you like.
Raisin offered his oar.
If you're tired, I'm happy to help.
The priest moved to replace Raisin on the bench. The boat floundered a bit until Theo found the motion and pattern. Then it continued toward the docks.
Very tiring,
Raisin said from where he now sat 1 row of benches away from Arika. She saw the twinkle in his eye.
I have no doubt. I'm growing weary just watching.
It's thirsty work,
Delani said from his oar.
Quit your yapping and row. That'll get an ale in your hand faster, Slab said to the elf opposite him on the bench.
Delani fell silent and they continued to row their way to the longest pier after a few more minutes of work. The top of the boat was just below the planks of the pier, but Delani pulled himself up and rolled onto it before rising and taking the rope Ganner handed him. He tied the boat off and moved out of the way so the others could climb off. A group of townsfolk were already making their way down the pier toward them, saving them some work of finding directions, at least.
Hello and welcome to Scarletta. What ship?
The Wave Chaser.
Arika stepped forward ahead of Delani and asked,
Are you the harbour master?
He turned from the elf to Arika and looked her up and down. Her bearing was regal, perhaps even noble. Her manner of dress was anything but, a dirty shirt that wasn't big enough for her, in spite of how many laces she'd loosened in a crudely thrown-together skirt that looked to have been cut from a horse blanket.
More or less.
Which is it, more or less?
More. Does the Wave Chaser had goods to trade, or are you looking to pick some up?
Pick some up. But first, where can I find Sparkith's lord?
Mayor. We don't have no lords, just a mayor that we vote in.
That will do nicely. Where might I find him?
The sort of harbor master looked up to the west and said,
This time of day, he might be at the town hall. Otherwise, he might be at his house.
Might be in the market, too. I forget to check in and get a schedule. Arika's smile didn't reach her eyes. Before she could speak, Theo slipped past Delani and stepped up next to her.
Pardon me, good sir. The people on the Wave Chaser. And the ship's coming on the morrow. They're in desperate need of food, water, clothes, and shelter. Please, we need to see what we can do to...
Theo.
Arika silenced him. Her smile was barely warmer this time.
I'm sure the harbour master would love to help, but he can only do so much. We have to find the right person.
Theo hesitated and bowed his head.
Yes, you're right. I'm sorry.
I know, Arika patted him on the arm. She turned back to the harbor master and said,
If you'll let us pass so we can find the mayor.
Sure, but there's the docking fee. It's 2 silver a day.
Of course. I agree to that.
Agreeing to it's one thing. Paying it, well, that's the thing that matters.
Arika met his mocking gaze with a sober one.
And it will be paid once we speak with the mayor and arrange terms.
His grin faded.
Look, we don't offer terms to people we don't know. You pay up front to prove you're good for it. Then after you got us trusting you, maybe we can talk terms.
Arika growled low and deep in her throat. A battle raged within her as her muscles coiled and made ready to pounce, shift, or find some way to destroy him.
Are you growling? At me? Are you some kind of wild animal?
Good sir, take this.
Theo stepped forward with a pair of silver coins in his hand.
That should set us right until the tomorrow.
If it's still here, it's another 2 silver. Every day. You can't leave without paying it.
Of course. Lady Arika, shall we?
Arika quieted her growl and glanced at Theo. She pulled her gaze away from his just as quick and moved forward. She walked past the harbor master, and one of the men with him didn't get out of her way in time, and she brushed past him on her way. Delani hurried after her, prompting the others to slip past the dock workers as well. Theo offered a shrug and a smile as he passed.
My lady.
Theo began once they were on solid ground. Arika spoke without looking at him.
You helped us pass the blockage. Don't apologize for that.
No, of course I wouldn't. I only meant to say that...
It does not need to be said.
Yes, but...
Arika stopped and swung around to face him.
I wasn't about to rip his face off or burn him to a charred nugget, even though I wanted to. I also do not know how I was going to proceed short of asking one of you if you had the fee. But in the moment, I hadn't thought of that yet. I will work on tempering myself more.
Whoa, you can do that? The thing with fire?
Arika ignored the elf and started walking again. Delaunay turned to Slab.
Do you think she can really do it?
The dwarf shrugged and suggested,
Maybe you should keep asking her and find out.
The move from the docks to a portion of town with shops and craftsmen, as late in the day as it was many of them were shut down, which might also account for how few people they saw out and about. Houses were scattered about the shops, showing little thought was given to the design of the town outside of convenience. It made for a quicker walk home from work too, instead of busying the streets with people going to and fro. The lack of crowded streets also let them see there was a market in a cleaner section of buildings that promised to be a likely place for the town hall.
We should split up since he might be anywhere. I'll take the town hall. Theo, you should probably come with me.
Happy to help.
I'll check the tavern.
I'll keep the elf in line,
Slab said, and turned to walk back toward the docks where Delaunay had started walking to a dockside tavern they'd passed. Delaunay grinned and clapped Slab on the shoulder.
That's the spirit? Or spirits? Hey, you're a brewer. Maybe you can get some tips.
I don't need tips. Might be I'd give the owner some tips instead. No finer ale than the deep dwarven stuff.
I'll check the market.
Good idea.
Arika walked ahead and sensed Theo catch up and fall in beside her. She kept moving after Raisin and Ganner branched off, heading toward the more central buildings in town.
Is it wise, splitting up like that?
Would they add anything to negotiations like this?
Theo tilted his head.
Perhaps. I find people can always surprise me.
And I find they usually don't. That's no house or store. There's a board for bulletins under that awning too.
Looks like a place for governance to me.
Arika raised an eyebrow at him and proceeded to the newly discovered town hall. The door, however, was locked.
Chapter 7.
Raisin let Ganner gain a few paces on him and moved to the side of the road. Ahead, on the right, lay his destination. A proper tavern, not the seedy dockside sort that smelled of fish stew and fishy women. He grinned at his own wordplay and made his way into the tavern while Ganner continued on, unaware. The smoke of a stove, lanterns, and people enjoying pipes washed over him. He sniffed at a tickle in his nose and then moved in out of the doorway. His eyes adjust quickly, but in spite of that, he still stumbled over a wooden cane and lurched onto the chair and the man sitting it that owned the polished walking stick.
My bad.
Raisin apologized as he pushed himself upright and away.
I'm so sorry, my eyes. It's so bright outside, and well, not so bright in here.
The man in the chair brushed his vest and held up a hand.
No apologies necessary, young man. Say, I don't believe we've met. Are you visiting Sparketh?
I am. Just off a ship, in fact.
Oh, I didn't know we had a ship bound for us for a while yet. We're a bit off the shipping lanes. Always happy to see more people. Tell me, is it a big ship? Lots of people? Are they looking to trade?
Raisin smiled and looked at the chair on the opposite side of the table. He put a hand on the top of it and asked,
May I?
Of course. Join me. What's your name?
Mine. Of course mine. I'm Raisin.
Raisin, I like that. Where are you from?
The man asked, and then held up a hand to stall Raisin's response. A barmaid approached and he turned to her.
Please, double my order for my new friend Raisin.
She nodded and slipped away. Raisin grinned.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to a real meal. Ever since we left Voluun, it's been limited rations and water that still has the taste of salt in it.
The man's brow furrowed.
Voluun, that's a few days away, and against the winds. What brings a ship from Voluun to here?
It was closest. After what happened, they needed to find the closest place.
Wait, what's this? What happened?
Raisin frowned.
I'm not sure I'm supposed to tell you.
Why not?
Well, I'm here with a woman, a lady actually, and she's supposed to be in charge of discussing what happened and getting help.
Well, this is something. A lady, you say? As in one of the 7 of Voluun?
I don't think so. I mean, she wasn't. Maybe she is now. I'm not really sure, to be honest.
Wait, this is very confusing. As I understand Voluun, a person can't just become a lord. They have to be chosen by the others.
Raisin shrugged.
Yeah, I'm confused too.
Maybe if you explained more about what happened?
Raisin looked left and right before he leaned forward.
Okay, but, well, I'm surprised when you actually hear about it, okay?
The man chuckled.
Of course.
The barmaid slipped between tables with a platter in her hand and 2 plates and 1 cup on it. She skillfully unloaded it and backed away, waiting a moment to see if either of them had anything to say before she turned and retreated to the kitchen. Raisin looked down at the juicy cut of venison on his plate and the small boiled potatoes and carrots beside it. A half load of bread cut at an angle rested on the final third of the plate.
Oh, this is heavenly.
Heavenly, what's that?
Sorry, saintly, we had a different name for something amazing and wonderful where I'm from. Nah.
Ah, yes. Voluun, the land of 10,000 peoples.
Raisin nodded and gobbled a few steaming vegetables, burning his tongue in the process and not caring. He slurped the wine that came with it and groaned in delight, then cut off some meat and chewed happily. His benefactor chuckled and had a few civilized bites of his meal while Raisin feasted. Halfway through his dinner, hunger gave way to reason again, and Raisin realized what a mess he'd made. He winced and licked his lips and fingers before dropping them under the table and wiping them on his pants.
Sorry, I didn't realize how hungry I was.
The man chuckled and said,
That's all right, you needed it.
I did, you're right. Still, all right, so here's what happened.
Raisin leaned forward.
We don't know how or why, but demons overran Voluun, sent us all running as fast as can be. We had to fight back a few times, but we got away to the docks. Well, some of us did.
3 ships worth of people. The rest, they didn't make it.
3 ships worth? Big ships? Galleons?
Raisin nodded.
Saints, I've never been to Voluun, but I've heard thousands live there.
Not anymore.
That's horrible.
He looked about the inn and then back to Raisin.
How many survived?
Not sure. Based on the wave chaser, I'd say 500 or 600.
The man's mouth dropped open. Raisin chewed on.
That's it? Did any others escape? How many demons could there have been?
Oh, hundreds, thousands maybe. Little ones, big ones, really big ones. One of them had like 6 arms and the body of a snake. Another one was part spider. Well, a few may have been. Oh, and then there was this big red one that looked kind of like an oversized ogre with bat wings and horns. And a tail, he killed Lady Tarala.
That's terrible.
Yeah, she kept them back long enough for us to escape.
He raised his cup in her honor before taking a drink.
Some might be still hiding, but I wouldn't give them good odds. Others might have fled to the rest of the Voluun. They say the island, I mean, not the city. But it sounds like the demons will sweep across that too?
This is... What's to stop them from crossing the seas and coming here? Or anywhere?
I guess they don't like crossing salt water. I don't know why, but that's what I heard.
Seems like it's true since the ones that came after our ships didn't try very hard and the rest stayed back.
Wow.
The man shuddered.
How terrible.
Raisin nodded. He raised his fork, which had a piece of meat speared on it.
So when I say thank you for this, I really mean it.
Of course,
The door to the tavern shut hard enough to distract the man. They both turned to look, and Raisin saw Lady Arika's unmistakable golden mane of hair. Thea was still with her.
Oh, that's Lady Arika there,
Raisin said, and he raised his hand to wave at her. She was already moving toward him and came to a stop beside his chair. She glanced down at his mostly eaten steak, and Raisin thought he heard her stomach growl.
Lady Arika, this?
Mayor Anders?
Yes, that's right. So you're Lady Arika. How can I help?
Her eyes narrowed and she glanced at Raisin again. Then her eyes went to his plate.
You want some?
Arika remained so still she nearly trembled before she turned back to the mayor.
I'd like to make a deal with you, Mayor. I have a ship in the bay full of people that have had a very bad week. They need food, water, clothing, shelter, and healers.
Yes, yes, extra healers would be good.
Of course. I'm happy to help as much as we can.
We don't have much to barter with.
I'll help. We won't let our neighbors suffer needlessly. But
Ganner walked out of the crowd and brushed against people as he moved straight to them.
Lady Arika, a word?
Arika frowned and looked down at the mayor.
Will you pardon me?
of course.
Arika turned away and stepped closer to Ganner. Theo crowded in as well.
What is it?
This place. Something's not right.
Arika glanced at Theo and then back to Ganner.
Do you know what?
I finally realized what's missing.
Missing?
Arika raised an eyebrow.
Children.
He paused and then added,
There's no children. None running around and playing, none being scolded or crying.
None doing chores or cleaning up as apprentices. None anywhere. Theo retraced their walk through the town in his mind and realized the man was right.
By Ayele's grace, you're right.
Arika turned back to the mayor.
I'm sorry, Mayor. You were saying...
Ah, yes. I was saying I will help, but I don't know how much help I can provide.
We're struggling ourselves. Arika's eyes dropped to the luxurious meal before him.
Oh.
I'll speak to the merchants and guilds to see about arranging some emergency supplies, but only if you agree to help us.
Help you?
Surely, if you took part in fighting off demons, you're more than capable of some simple tasks for a small and simple town of people trying to make a peaceful living.
Arika turned and looked at Raisin. The gold flecks in her brown eyes glowed bright for an instant, nearly overpowering the brown in them. When she turned back to the mayor, her normal color had returned.
Perhaps. What troubles does an out-of-the-way village full of simple people wanting to make a peaceful living have?
Yes, well, there's a few, actually.
There always is.
He winced and sighed.
We have stores of water, thank the saints, but the water in the river's gone sour.
Something's off about it. People that drink from it end up sick. It doesn't kill them, or it hasn't yet, but nobody's been fool enough to keep drinking it after trying it once or twice.
Poisoned water, that's horrible. Of course we'll...
Arika silenced him with a glare.
We'd like to help.
Arika agreed with the priest.
But we'll need to know more.
Ah, yes. Then there's the other thing.
What other thing?
Our children. They're gone.
Arika could feel Ganner stand taller with the confirmation that he was right.
Has anyone checked to see if they're rotting in the river upstream, making people sick?
The mayor grimaced.
We've sent people to look. No one knows what's causing it. There are no bodies in the river, though.
Our ship arrived today. 2 others come tomorrow. We can pay a little, but not much. If we help, will you see to it that the people of Voluun are cared for?
He gave a single nod.
As best we can. We don't have much and there aren't many of us. We number a little over 100 and there are only 9 children. The youngest is not even a year old. The oldest is Zeke. He's 13 and was set to start his own farm and lumber mill this coming spring.
Missing children. All right, we'll begin at once. The ships. Our people.
Yes, of course. Thank you. For your people, I'll make the rounds tonight to rouse what aid I can. I'm afraid they'll still be rationing food, but it'll be fresh food at least.
That's a start. We'll go now.
He nodded his head eagerly and pushed his chair back so he could stand up.
As will I.
He grabbed his cane and bowed his head a final time before turning and moving through the crowd. Arika looked at his hardly touched steak and then down at Raisin's mostly eaten one. She snatched up Raisins and opened her mouth unnaturally wide to toss the last of it into her mouth. She chewed on it noisily and swallowed in a single gulp. She turned and looked at Ganner and Theo and asked,
You want to split the other one?
Both men shook their heads and then glanced at each other.
Suit yourself.
Arika grabbed it in her hand. She ripped half of it off with very sharp teeth, and after a few quick chomps and another gulping swallow, shoved the last part of it into her mouth as well. She turned and he started walking toward the exit, pink juice dripping from her fingers.
This is the end of part 1 of Castaways. Subscribe and click the bell to get notified when part 2 is uploaded.